yarn and color expert and knitwear designer and author Laura Bryant is back to tell us more about how to use hand-dyed yarns effectively. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Rooney.
So last time we talked a little bit about how to decide whether, or find out whether your skein was hand-painted or hand-dyed, but what do we do with that information?
Well, if you have a hand-dyed skein, you have a whole world open to you of incredible effects that you can get, that you can only get really from hand-dyed yarns. And that's because the size of skeins is naturally a very workable size. And the size of a skein is called the repeat of the color, okay? And here we're looking at a dyed across skein.
And just as a refresher, dyed across means that
the dye was applied across, and you can see, even though these colors are subtle, you can see that the colors do in fact go across. The magic number is that sweet spot where you're using exactly the number of stitches needed to go around that, and it can produce something like this, where the colors actually stack, and they look just like the colors in the skein. You've got this, then this, and this, this, and this, okay?
That makes perfect sense.
And that's called stacking, all right? And that's a little fiddly to knit on. You have to be constantly paying attention. We call that attentive knitting. But you can have mindful knitting, and mindful knitting allows you to vary a little bit in tension, usually done on one more or one fewer stitch than the magic number, and that allows the color to travel, and you get these marvelous argyle-like diamonds.
Wow, and
that
so
happen.
Just one stitch makes all that difference.
One stitch makes the difference between this and this.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So let's look at a couple different ways that we can use those magic numbers. I happen to have a dyed around skein here.
And as a refresher, what's the difference between dyed around and dyed across?
These colors appear only once on each skein. The colors go around the skein as opposed to across the skein, okay? Both will work for all of these effects. So if you knit this circularly, like this, these colors just stack up.
Oh, wow.
And if you do it attentively, you can make perfect columns. But if you do it sort of mindfully, you can get wavering zigzags like this. We call that flashing. If you take that same magic number and you break it in half and knit it back and forth, you can get argyles. And you can get argyles on either a full magic number or a half magic number. So magic numbers are really important. That's knitted rib, so it's a little narrower. This is crocheted seed stitch, and again, you can see the colors argyling. This is double crochet, and the colors are mindfully or attentively stacked.
Wow, and
so
it's really amazing. It looks like an actual color work pattern.
Right. It looks like you have done all kinds of work, and you have a little bit, but it's really it's inherently in the dyed skein.
It's amazing to me that these are all the same, this skein, in fact.
Yes.
And you can control the effect so closely.
So the way that you find a magic number, if you have a dye skein like this, it's a little bit tough to measure it, because where on earth are you going to measure this?
Right.
So it's better to take the measurements on a reconstructed skein, and this, of course, is the little bit that's left from the swatches that I did. So you can see that this is easier to measure on. What we're doing is measuring end to end on this skein, and I'm getting 24¼ inches. And you want to keep the fractions, but what we want is the real magic number, which is the full around. So we double that number. Okay, so we're 24½, so the magic number is 49 inches. I mean, the repeat number, the repeat measurement is 49 inches. Then you have to do a little work of swatching to find out how much yarn it takes to make each stitch. And typically we do that with a 20-stitch swatch, and you get away from your cast on. You can't do it in the first row or two. You've got to relax into your knitting and get into a good gauge. And then you mark the yarn where it exits the stitch, and you unknit that row. Now you know how much yarn it takes to make 20 stitches, and then you just do the math backwards. Divide that by 20, then take the repeat size and divide that by the fractional number that you got, and you're going to get very close to a magic number.
And this diagram lays it all out for you really clearly.
Yeah, when it's a dyed across skein, you can see that circularly it's going to stack. I'm sorry, that's the dyed around skein. Circularly will stack, and dyed across skein also circularly will stack. Dyed across skein, when you knit it back and forth, can stack, but a dyed around skein stacks with some areas being every other row. So you get some interesting effects from that, and then you can see how when the colors move, they make these diamonds.
That's so fascinating. If you need a little more time to digest this, you can get the same information on the pattern, which is available on the web. The pattern for these four great scarves.
Yes, crochet and knit. Yeah.
So what's happening here?
Well, those magic numbers are hardwired into the skein. They make one size. There's not anything that you can do to make that be different. It's not like regular knitting where you change the needle size, it changes the gauge. Because when you do that, if you get bigger stitches,
right,
you need fewer stitches. So
it depends on the exact
yes,
size
exactly.
of the stitch.
So if you want to turn that magic number into something that you can use, then you have to get creative. And here is this color of hand-dyed yarn, knit flat and then knit circularly, same color, with a window pane effect that spreads it, okay? It wasn't big enough to be a hat.
Oh.
But because every 2 stitches out of every 5 is being knit with another color and it's only being slipped along the back, you get more width out of it. So you have to kind of play with magic numbers to really get what you want from them.
And is that just judgment and experience, just trying it out and seeing how much yarn it takes?
Yes, it's a lot of swatching. It's a lot of swatching.
But the effects are worth it.
The effects are pretty spectacular. They are. You can also go to a very small magic number, like in this entrelac bag, where the stripes now are repeated because you're really using the same. It's only 10 stitches, I think, and you can see the yellow goes again and again and again. So that's kind of fun. This, of course, is a dyed around skein. Wouldn't matter if it was dyed around or dyed across. That's been knit circularly 3 times the magic number to get the full width of the sweater, and then steeked down the front.
So cut open.
Right, so you can always, you have that option if you want to knit circularly. And then here, there have been a number of different colorways, different colors of hand-dyed yarn that have been carefully stacked. They all have in common this blue, and so they're lined up so the blue just goes up the middle as you change from one skein to another to another.
Wow. So color effects don't just begin and end in the skein. There's a lot more afterwards.
There is.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks, Uni.
We'll be right back.